All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are here as the crazy ones, the misfits, and the rebels who are working as innovators to transform education. So, to get started, let's do a lightning round really quick. I would love for you to share your name, your organization, and I'm going to pick up off where Randall left the void that your technology is filling in the market.
Hi, Jeff Imrich, one of the co-founders of Rock by Rock, and the void our tech is filling in the market is holistic learning that integrates academics, life habits, and sense of purpose in a really authentic way that empowers kids to grow agency and voice.
Hi, everyone. Edna Martinson, co-founder of Boddle Learning. We are a gamified platform for K through 6 education with serving over 7 million kids around the country, 2.5 million kids on the platform monthly. And we're really focused in on helping educators deliver adaptive practice and assessments through a gamified format that increases kids' confidence to learn, because we really believe that confidence drives comprehension. And the more confident students are, the more engaged they are as well.
My name's Adam Sparks. I'm the co-founder of a company called Short Answer. Put simply, we just help kids learn how to write. So it's a gamified writing platform for K-12. The need we're serving is that by the time kids get to high school, 75% of them cannot write. So put another way, they're functionally illiterate. Literacy is the ability to read and write. And our kids can't write by the time they get to high school, so we're addressing that.
Matt Chaussee, CEO and co-founder of CareerView XR by Bemorecolorful. The void that we're filling is making sure that students are aware of the career possibilities that are out there. We're an immersive media and virtual reality platform that creates immersive experiences that allow students to get a taste of what a day in the life of different occupations are. Most students are pulling from a really small pool of knowledge of what is out there, and that means that their choice is maybe not the best one out of the gate. We want to expand that pool of knowledge and make sure that they can confidently say they've explored enough to be able to choose that right path.
Thank you all. I'm excited about our conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and riff off of what we've heard today. I heard that chronic absenteeism is potentially the number one problem faced in education today. Well, I think we need to look at that a little bit differently. If we were able to get every child in a classroom, what are they engaging in when they're in that room? Are they still using textbooks that are all written as if every child learns the same way, as if every child is the exact same person from the exact same background? If that hasn't changed, then just getting them to show up at school alone is not enough. I want you all to also think about something else. For those of you that are not as obsessed at education stats as we are, 87% of American students are graduating high school, but about 22% of them are proficient in math, and ironically, 30% of them are deemed college and career ready. There is a massive gap with social promotion where we are sending kids out into the world not ready for the workforce. So my question for you all is, about 40% Americans are making $40,000 or less. About 50% of us Americans are making below livable wage, which is $59,000. Matt, Adam, talk to us about how your technology is helping address and prepare students for, by the time they graduate, that they're actually more workforce ready.
So for us, it's about reducing the bias that's inherently there for how students choose career paths. They're choosing from that really small pool of knowledge of what they've been exposed to. When we ask them that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? They can only choose something that they've been exposed to. They can't be what they can't see. And if we can expand that, if we can show them that, hey, there are all of these other great opportunities out there, that choice can become more informed. We can create opportunities where they're able to say, okay, yeah, I could see myself going down this path, or I could see myself going down that path. We've got problems across industries, like 97% of construction workers are male. Construction is absolutely a career pathway that a female can choose, that a woman can choose. It is. There are so many things that are preventing students from going down paths that could be very lucrative for them, that could be very enjoyable for them. For me, I was asked the question, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, first thing that came to mind was psychologist. So I chose a psychology degree. That started the first of my 7 major changes throughout college, my 6.5 years getting my 4-year degree. We need to prevent that from happening. Luckily, I was able to make my way through it, and I'm, now doing something that I love. But how many students don't get that opportunity? The knowledge of what they have, that pool of career opportunities, are the things that they've seen, and they're the things that are paying less than $40,000 a year when there are positions open and companies that want to hire for very, very well-paying jobs, but we've not connected with the students directly to show them, help them envision, this could be you.
Yeah, I guess for me, if you look at the research, literacy is one of the most important predictors of health and well-being as our kids go out throughout their lives. I don't care what job you want. You have to be able to read and write in order to access the curriculum to do that job. So we're addressing that, I think, through a very simple way. Kids can't write by the time they get to high school because they're not writing in schools. It's predominantly falling on the English teacher to do all the writing practice. And makes some sense. The English teacher's in charge of writing, but for us, we think writing needs to be embedded across the curriculum, as has been advocated for decades. And so we just want to make that easy through short gamified writing that you can embed in any classroom to teach content through writing. So yeah, I mean, literacy, no matter what you want to do, you need to be literate.
You did a great job of slam dunking that point. I thought that's what you were going to say. So our panel today, it might as well be called Alphabet Soup. We have AI, XR, VR, all these different technologies. And the question is this a fad? Is this a trend that people are using in order to make profit in education? Or can it truly help? I think all of us remember at one point in time, whether it was our grandparents or our great-grandparents saying, hey, when you saw that person walking on the moon, don't believe it wasn't true. Well, the truth is right now, AI and technology has enabled us in order to drive innovation in a way where, as Dr. Matt Cummins at Stemuli says, we are building sci-fi now. So, Jeff and Edna, please talk about your platforms and how they're addressing gaps in education through the latest technologies.
Yeah, I can start. So with Boddle, we use AI to tailor the content to each child's specific needs. And that's really important because when you have a teacher in a classroom with 20 plus students, 4th grade classroom, but all the kids are in different learning levels. Some kids are still in, 1st and 2nd grade math and reading level. Other kids need more rigor, right? And you're one teacher trying to facilitate learning in this classroom full of kids. You need a tool that's going to allow you to be able to one, just understand where all your kids are at. And then if it's able to adapt the learning for each child, then it's helping you facilitate learning better. And so that's what we do at Boddle. So the kids, number one, they're engaged because it's delivered through a gamified format. It's games that kids love that match kind of what they're playing outside of the classroom. So that engagement level is there. And then on the teacher side, they're getting that data showing like, okay, this is where all my students are at. These are the learning gaps that we have. There's one report that we have called a learning gaps report that's able to identify, if all 4 of us were working on a fractions assignment, all struggling on it for different reasons, it would adapt down to the, prerequisite skills that we each need to address and give the teacher that data so they're seeing, oh, wow, like I can, focus in on this specific skill for Edna to make sure she's going to catch up. So that's how we're using AI and machine learning on our platform.
So the way we use technology, I guess just to start with, we're kind of an accidental ed tech. We didn't start thinking we were going to be an ed tech company. We started with the problem of kids are bored, school attendance is declining. Kids are not learning in holistic, organic ways that value them as people and their sense of self. Test scores are going down. Teachers are unhappy, right? But the root of this is there's a problem with how we approach teaching and learning in a way that honors kids' curiosity and humanity and integrity and empowers them, right? And so one of the best ways to put kids in the driver's seat is project-based learning. And so our question was, how do we make this type of learning that can actually improve kids' felt and lived experience on so many levels more equitably accessible? Tech became the way to do that. And so our platform enables folks to stand up project-based learning much more efficiently and quickly. But the other way we're thinking about using technology is how to empower different student outcomes. And so we had, over the last couple of months, we've run focus groups with homeschool families and with microschools. And the questions we asked were, what are the outcomes you care about? And how can we, through tech and project-based learning, support you to achieve those outcomes with your kids? And a couple of key things came up. One was, we really want to put kids in the driver's seat of their own reflection. How do we help them lead their learning instead of us just evaluating them and giving them a score? The other thing was, I really want this to be holistic and authentic. Like, how do I help my kids develop a sense of self and not just see red on the report card, right? Like, we had one mom in our groups, Aiden's mom, and she said, he comes home every day feeling like he can't succeed. School is not a place where he can thrive. All he sees are red marks, and all he's told is you're not doing what you need to do, right? And she's like, and the toll that takes on him as a person and his ability to see himself as someone who can like actually lead in the world is crippling, right? So she's like, I want tools and assessments that help him show up as his full self. Yes, grow in reading and math, but also recognize that I am more than a reading and math score, right? And so one of the things that we've done through that work is figure out, okay, so if we want student first, empowering, we want to focus on core academic skills, but also honor the broader self. We've worked with families in microschools to develop a framework that it puts kids in the driver's seat to reflect on core academics, and those academic skills focus on building voice and agency. Can I understand a problem? Can I argue a solution? And I can compel others towards that, because those are transferable skills that you can use in any context. And now what we're thinking about is how can we leverage technology to help you better put kids in the driver's seat of reflection. And this is where things like AI start to come in, which is how can we use that as a tool of empowerment towards those student-centered outcomes. And so part of what we do is use tech to make project-based learning simple. And now what we're doing is partnering with families and educators to think about how can we leverage that to put kids in the driver's seat. And so that part of it is a little bit more like a design lab, because I don't know what's going to look like yet, because we're on a journey of figuring it out together. But that's part of the way we're thinking about the alphabet soup.
Thank you, Jeff. What I love about this room is all of these innovators have worked alongside and heard for years from the people that are on the front lines trying to solve these problems. So what I would love to zoom in on now is I want to understand the first breakthrough success you had. It could be with one child, one classroom, or one school. What was the outcome that your technology was able to drive? And when you continue to scale, what student outcomes at large should we see the needle moved on? And I would love for all of you to answer that question. Let's start down here.
Sure. Well, for me, the reason I brought up women in construction was that was a breakthrough moment for me, where we had just started creating the first few experiences, and we created this bricklayer experience. And I was, we take a very students first approach when we're developing the product, when we're building new experiences. And I was with a group of students, and this young lady, she was in 4th grade, says, I want to try that bricklayer experience. And initially, my thought is, well, you're not going to like this. I didn't say that, of course, but shame on me for having the thought. Our biases that we have on these things. And she put on the headset, and she's looking around, and she says, oh, wow, I love these patterns. Oh, that looks so satisfying. And she takes the headset off and looks straight at me and says, I think I want to be a bricklayer. And I never would have thought that I would have gotten that reaction. And that response from that student immediately made me say, okay, we need to broaden the base for all of these things. She may or may not end up being a bricklayer, but she knows that careers in construction are an opportunity that she could pursue. So to do that across all of the industries that we can, that's where we're headed next. And the way that we do that is through partnerships. We start with students. We make sure we're creating something that students love to be able to go and explore, and that's really accessible. Yes, we create videos that go into VR headsets, so we have the virtual reality component. We also know that not every school can afford VR headsets, and if they can, maybe it's only 1 or 2, so we have a whole platform that allows them to navigate from any device that they've got, or to use for an educator to use a smart board, making sure that we're reducing the barriers to exploring the content that we have out of the gate. The second piece to that is building partnerships across industries, being able to get to places that students don't get to go. On top of a wind turbine, onto an oil field, A couple months ago, so I used to do all the production. I don't do all of the production anymore, but I get to kind of cherry pick which shoots I go on. And we worked with Mike Felton in his school, and we created a day in the life of a lobster fisherman experience. And that is now it's the #1 requested experience that the students want to go see. And now students that are landlocked, we're from North Dakota. And students in North Dakota now are learning about the commercial fishing industry, which can open up conversations about, oh, well, what do they do with a lobster? Well, you've seen lobsters in the grocery store, you've seen them in the restaurant. Now it opens up conversations about culinary careers. So by building these partnerships with industries, we can diversify that content library, and we can also create direct connections between industry and education. And that's really the future of CareerView XR, is building those industry and education opportunities so that students' pool of knowledge, of understanding of what's out there is bigger. Their knowledge about the careers in that pool is deeper. And they can make a more effective decision about the path they want to go down, so that this career exploration doesn't happen in college. It doesn't happen the first few years in the workforce. It's happened as soon as they're getting, it starts as soon as they're getting into school. Earlier and more diverse career exploration that is backed by partnerships between education and industry. Right now in North Dakota, we're working on building out a set of industry partnerships that are actually going to be financially sustaining CareerView across all of K-12 in North Dakota. We're getting there. It's very stepwise, but we're building a model that we see being able to scale to each and every state and eventually nationally. We're starting to see some success on a national scale as well. We partnered with Bismarck State College, who is one of the polytechnic institutions in our state, as well as Impact Dakota, the state's manufacturing extension partnership, and North Dakota Assistive, who provides assistive equipment to individuals with disabilities on a Disability Innovation Fund grant. The premise of that grant was, or the premise of our application, was to leverage the CareerView platform to help individuals with disabilities find opportunities in advanced manufacturing by creating awareness between those two groups. We will be initially providing opportunities for those individuals to become employed. Then we're going to create new experiences in the CareerView platform that show people with low vision receiving assistive equipments that then allow them to succeed in those roles, showing how hearing impairments can be overcome in the job site, so that the disability community, who is underemployed at a incredibly high rate, but many of whom are very eager and willing to work, can now be engaged in the workforce. There are all sorts of programs like that out there and available, and that's a big part of how we look to leverage our industry and education partnerships to scale this on a national level.
That's great. Who else wants to jump in?
Yeah, so when you asked that question, my mind immediately went to one moment last year. So we're a very new company at Short Answer. We've only been around for one full school year. But last year there was a teacher, her name's Courtney Williamson, she's from Marble Falls, Texas, 8th grade social studies teacher. And I used to teach 8th grade social studies, so it's a cool moment. She tweeted at us, and it was a video of them doing a battle royale activity in Short Answer. And at the end of it, in the back of the room, a kid jumped out of his chair in excitement for the results. And I don't know if you've taught 8th graders, but getting kids to jump out of their chair in excitement for writing practice is a challenge. And so that was a moment I think is extremely powerful, and this is why, like in the age of AI, machines can now write for our kids, for better or for worse. And so it's going to be incredibly challenging, I think, even more challenging than it already is, to motivate them to want to write. And so to see a kid jump out of his chair in excitement for writing, to me, means we are addressing that challenge of like motivating kids to want to practice writing. The second part of your question, I think, is about efficacy. As a very new tool, we're approaching it from a perspective of a portfolio of efficacy that we build over time. So I think for us as an ed tech, that means starting with building your product out of a research-backed theory of change. We started with that. So Short Answer was designed at Stanford. It was my master's project originally. So we have that theory of change, and now it's measuring that theory of change. So last year, we did our first case study with educators where we triangulated basically Net Promoter Score surveys with unstructured interviews, and then some surveys that we sent out through email, and then just triangulated that data on like how are people experiencing the tool right now. And then we share that on our website. You can read that. We want to continue to do more rigorous efficacy research over time. So we would love to partner with researchers at in higher ed to do like an actual randomized control trial to measure our efficacy. But as a product that's very much, we're building it while we're flying it. We're approaching it from the perspective of building a portfolio over time as our product changes.
It's phenomenal. Edna?
Before I answer, he shared that photo of that kid jumping out of their seat in Miami, and it was amazing. Also, I've read their portfolio of efficacy on their website, and it's really great. You guys should check it out. So for us, there's 3 moments I can remember. So we launched Boddle in 2020, like a few months before all the lockdowns happened. And about like 2 or 3 months in, teachers are desperately looking for tools. They're like, I'm dealing with, the whole education system is flipped on its head, and all of a sudden my kids are all remote. How am I going to deliver these assignments to them? The school has finally given us one-to-one devices, but how am I supposed to get them to complete their practice and assessment items? And then they stumbled upon Boddle, and we had a teacher reach out and say, oh my goodness, this is what I've been looking for. The kids love it. It's, they're really into the games. They're actually completing my math assignments that I'm assigning on there. I'm getting the data. It's saving me time on grading these assignments that I'm creating as well. And so that was a moment of wow, we're really making an impact, especially during a time where, teachers were desperate, parents were desperate, looking for ways how do we continue to educate our kids in this pandemic situation. The second moment was post-COVID or coming out of it, and schools are back in session, and we were really intentional in the way that we designed the platform. And so we wanted to make sure we can have standards-aligned content. We don't have to burden teachers with having to figure out, how is this game going to teach my kids fractions, or how is this game going to teach this specific ELA skill. We wanted it to be, kids have the autonomy to pick the game experience they want. On the teacher side, they know they have these standards aligned curriculum that they have to deliver. They're able to go in and just pick the skills that they need. And for us, making sure we had Texas Teaks, Florida Best in there. And so we had a teacher from Florida say, oh my goodness, I've been looking for a platform that has our standards on there that I can use. And so again, that was a moment of this, we're making impact in these areas and giving teachers the resources that they need. And then the third thing, so our business model, equity is really important to us. So our platform is free for regardless of demographic, what school a kid goes to, whether they're using it at home, whether they're using it at school. We have a free version, and I think being able to deliver high quality learning resources to all students. We give parents the option to buy premium subscriptions similar to how they do it for Roblox or Fortnite or other gaming platforms that their kids love. And I think doing it that way, for me, I'm glad we chose that path because one, we're able to give access to just a huge number of kids and make an impact in that way.
Phenomenal. Jeff?
Yeah, I'm just curious. How many of you have been in a situation where this could be a learning experience or a job where you have felt frustrated because you've been really tightly micromanaged? Okay. So how many of you have been in a situation, could be a learning experience or a job, where you feel like you have lots of ideas, but they're not being heard or valued by your colleagues or by the folks above you? All right, I'm seeing a couple of hands there. How many of you have been in a situation where you have gone from one of those environments into another environment where you feel like, oh my gosh, I have found my place? Okay, there's a lot of hands going up right now, right? We've all felt those things. Too many kids feel the first two on a daily basis. They feel micromanaged, like they don't have a voice, like their ideas don't matter, like they don't have a place in that setting. And with the feeling we get when we go from that to something else is liberation. And when we think about outcomes that we care about, one of the things we hear most often, and especially from some of our non-traditional educators, is this feeling of liberation where kids' relationship with learning is changing, right? And so when we think about our aha moments, it's when we talk with educators and we hear things like, we're having a different conversation at the dinner table now, and the stuff we're talking about in learning is actually what kids want to continue to talk about. We hear things like, oh, this was the first time all year my kids were engaged in reading and writing. Or I had no idea my daughter was passionate about that. Or I'm seeing a different side of my child, right? And so for us, the outcomes we care most about are empowering kids and changing that relationship. And so we start with the question of how can we put kids in a position to have voice and do something with what they're learning to actually make an impact in the world. And for us, that's been like the biggest aha in terms of the impact that has as an unlock in terms of what we see. Writing goes up, reading goes up, science skills go up, but they're not going up because we're giving you more practice at it. They're going up because I feel like I have agency and voice and I'm being empowered. And so for us, the thing that we see is when we talk with educators who are having those ahas and then changing their practice with kids, that's when we started to say like, okay, I think maybe we're onto something here as a way to try and like better serve and reach kids.
It's phenomenal. So we're rounding out our last question, and you get to pick your poison here. So one of my questions is, as you look at what Sam Altman says about where AI is going, he says sometimes people are building for where AI is right now as if the base of it is not going to continue to dramatically improve month over month and year over year. So the question is, where do you all see AI being leveraged in education that's beyond productivity is one of your poisons. The second poison is, what recommendation would you have for policymakers, given your experience across the technology field? Leave about a minute and a half for me to wrap up here. So whoever wants to jump in. Red pill or blue pill?
I can start on this one. One of the things that we always talk about internally as a team is that we are all students. And so, you know, I would say that to everybody in this room as well. Like, we are all students, and technology is changing rapidly. AI has been around for a long time, right? Now it's becoming very like popularized, and we're talking about it more mainstream, and it's changing every day. How we use it now, we kind of talked about it as a productivity tool. We're starting to look at like how can it really help in education, to help teachers, to help students, you know, personalize learning and education. So I would say first, like, it's important for us to seek out, you know, with each other in this room, because it's just like a great wealth of knowledge here and elsewhere, to understand like how is it presently being used in a way that we can leverage it in all our different organizations and institutions, but then also just thinking ahead of like what could be, right? Like, we're not limited to just what it is right now. Even though it's been around for a while, it's still in its infancy. And so how can we use it? What I'm excited about is like, you know, using AI for like translations. I think that's amazing, especially like we've had so many educators reach out to us. We have got Spanish translations on the site now, but there's all of these different languages, or a teacher gets a kid in mid-school year and they're like, oh, my child is an English language learner, but their native language is insert native language. Like, do you have this translation on Boddle? And I think like there's ways to leverage AI on that, right? To make that learning experience better for those kinds of situations.
It's phenomenal. One more answer before we're about to wrap up.
Well, yeah, and I'm just going to piggyback on what Edna said. That's exactly what we're working to do next. We only have capacity as an organization to build one version of an experience, but we know that one version of experience doesn't hit every student's need. That's taking a broad brush approach to every student. So our goal is to embrace AI as part of the product that we're creating that goes into schools, and create these in every language that is used in a school. That benefits not just the students, but the parents who are helping the students make a career decision. The parents might not be fluent English speakers, but they're still an incredibly important part in how that student makes a career choice. And if they're not engaged in what the careers are in those communities, it's going to be a bad outcome, right? So AI can be an incredibly powerful tool for social change, for good, if it is applied to the right problems.
Yeah.
Can I have 22 and a half seconds?
All right.
Okay.
We might go to negative 22 when it's time for me to talk. Go ahead.
So we just did a series of AI design sprints with middle schoolers. And the question was like, how do you use it? What do you want? And what could we learn from it? And our goal from that was like, how can we leverage AI to support kids, to put them in the driver's seat? Two things came up. Kids were most engaged when it challenged them to think critically. And then our question then was, how do we use this as a tool so that kids can be AI builders and not just AI consumers?
Great. All right. Well, you've heard from a panel of innovators about the fact that AI, XR, VR, the alphabet soup is not just a fad. It's truly an innovation that can help level the playing field. At Stemuli, one of our earliest examples of a breakthrough was when we met a young student by the name of Mohammed, who was raised by a single father who had aspirations to become a Cisco engineer. And through working with us in our platform, not only was he able to earn his certification when he was in high school, but he graduated and went straight into the workforce, making $90,000 a year when his father wasn't making $25,000. So as a black woman standing here today, I have to say that it does keep me up at night to think about the statistics who are actually children and families who are graduating and leaving high school every day, not prepared for the workforce. But when you think about that impact, we're talking about a lack of housing, a lack of education, a lack of healthcare that these folks have access to. So then when I take the blue pill and I think about the power of AI and what it has, the impact that it can change, look at what I said about the textbook. Right now, a textbook does not have the ability to be culturally responsive to who I am, where I grew up, the income of my parents, or the desperate need of where I need to go to. But where AI is today is it's allowing us to develop games that previously took years and hundreds of millions of dollars to develop games within a matter of weeks for pennies compared to the price. So as I stand here today as a black woman, a crazy one, a misfit, and a rebel, I'll tell you that AI, XR, VR is not just a fad. It is something that can bring us together and truly level the playing field so that all of us, not 50% of us, are making above a livable wage, and then we're able to enjoy a high quality of life. Thank you all.